years old. Later on, it was formally registered as the Bombay Orthopedic Society. We have had the annual conference called the Western India Regional Orthopedic Association, Western India Regional Orthopedic Conference, which happens every year, either in December or November. Last few years, since I have been the executive committee member, it has always happened in December. It is the flagship conference. The Bombay Orthopedic Society is the second largest orthopedic society of India, of the general orthopedic surgeons, after the IOA. And it is one of the cream de la cream. The people from Bombay Orthopedic Society are invited everywhere, all over India, to give talks. And so today is the Founders Day. And to introduce and say more about the BOS, I hand over to Dr. Sanjay Dhar, whom I have known for 20 years. That 2003 was the first VIROC which I ever attended. And 2023 is the last conference which I have attended of VIROC, which was just finished in December, less than a month back.
Thank you, Neeraj. Welcome, Madam Pai, Roopa Pai. Welcome, Dr. Tushar, my sort of a mentor in motivational. So we are thankful to Madam Roopa for joining us today. As Dr. Neeraj has already said, this is supposed to be BOS Day. Dr. R.J. Khatrik was our founding sort of president and mentor, and he actually started the whole thing. And since then, we have been continuously engaged in orthopedics and orthopedic activity in the city and around the country. So I think today is the right day to welcome you also this session. And I hand it over to Dr. Tushar for any further introductions.
I was actually telling Madam Roopa Pai that Dr. Sanjay Dhar is a living sort of symbol of the Yoga Sutras. He just does it very naturally. Okay. And when I told her that you win every election unopposed, so she says that goes to show that the Yoga Sutras stay alive. If you live them, then you win all battles without having a battle. So to introduce the topic, I'll just share my PowerPoint. So I'm sure this is all visible. So today's topic is Yoga Sutras in context to modern times for the modern orthopedic surgeon. So when we talk about Patanjali Yoga Sutras, what really happens is when we hear the two words Patanjali and Yoga, all that the modern Indian can recollect is Ramdev Baba. But is that correct? So to prove that wrong, I think we'll have this talk today. Life is not all about Ramdev Baba. And this is Madam Pai, who will be, who's so dynamic and who talks so animatedly about this topic. And these are her images. She's also written a memoir with Milind Soman. And here's her picture with Devi Shetty, attesting the fact that she is really well accepted by the medical fraternity. This is the book that we are going to be discussing today. So in my research on Patanjali Yoga Sutras, I realized that Patanjali was actually the serpent form of God, the Vishnu's serpent form, who actually dropped from the heaven onto the Anjali, the wrist, the palms of a Devi. So that is why it's called Patanjali, in his quest to know more about yoga. So when he came into this world, he actually wrote 3 books, one on physical health, Ayurveda, one on spiritual health, and one on social health. Today's day will be spent working more on the spiritual and the mental health. And it's a 7-ladder platform, actually, so which helps us become from Pashu to Pashupati. So from human form to God form. Okay. And I'm sure it's not very easy to do all these 7 forms, but the ultimate objective is to reach a final thoughtless state of mind, which is called Samadhi. Right? So if we practice the right form of yoga, we reach from Pashu to Pashupati, that is from man form to God form. And this is a comparison of the modern brain and actually our ancient version of our brain, which said that because they didn't have the brain to dissect, right? So they dissected the thought process and they found that there is manas, And from till the end, we reach to the Chitta. Madam will probably extrapolate more on this. And to give you the sort of time frame as to when the Patanjali Yoga Sutras were written, it's somewhere around the Christ era, just before or just after. It's difficult to date it, but it's definitely predating the Bhagavad Gita and the Yoga Vasishtam. So some of our orthopedic surgeons and our audience would be familiar. Most, I'm sure, are grossly unfamiliar with this. So it will be very interesting to learn more. And our author is very celebrated. Just today in the Google search engine, she is number 3 from the top in the children's authors list. That's a very, very proud achievement indeed. And this is a picture to show that though her books are traditionally titled for children, but exactly the opposite, find it very gratifying to read. So from she had given me a list, so I give a gist of the list. She has written over 30 books. Her book Gita for Children is listed among the 100 most important Indian books to be read in your lifetime. That's some achievement for any human being. She's written Milind Soma's memoir. She writes a fortnightly column in Hindustan Times, Bangalore. She has founded the Bangalore Walks, which is a passion-driven work for her. So from her book, Yoga is stilling of the changing, churning mind. You're not the storm, but the calm center of the storm. You can change your nature, find joy in the present, inspiration in the past, and a purpose in the future. And for all activities, start with faith. So I'll stop sharing and Madam, we welcome, as we keep welcoming more and more members of our executive committee. Now, Madam, I would like to ask you as to how did you decide to write a book on the Yoga Sutras? You have written various books. I have read the Gita and the Vedas and your scientific book also. But what about the Yoga Sutras? Why the Yoga Sutras?
Thank you to the Bombay Orthopedic Society. Congratulations and best wishes for your foundation day today. And I'm very honored that you decided to invite me as your special guest for today. I have spoken here at this forum before. That was during COVID, so a couple of years ago, perhaps 3 years ago. And that was a wonderful experience. And Dr. Tushar and I have been in touch off and on since then. Yeah, so I'm very happy to be here. And thank you for the warm welcome, Dr. Tushar. Yeah, so how did I come? And thank you, Neeraj, also. Yeah. And how did I come to write the Yoga Sutras? So actually, I'm a person with a convent school education background, not at all the kind of person who would be writing books on spirituality and philosophy, especially about the ancient texts. That was not, I was deeply into Indian mythology, but not so much into Indian scripture. But, you know, one thing led to another. There was a combination of chance, choice, whatever happened in 2015. Because of an editor who would not give up and who believed in me, I came to write the Gita for Children. You know, I hadn't even read it. I hadn't grown up in a home that revered it, or I even had a copy of it. And that's why I was a little intimidated by the task ahead of me when I was asked to write a book and, you know, sort of interpret it for children. I said, you know, why am I the right person for this? But my editor had faith. She stuck to her guns. And then when I began to read it, I realized it was a very, very special book, the Gita, and the oldest self-help book in the world. So I wrote about it. And, you know, I was still a little intimidated by what will people say? Will they accept it, etc. It was very warmly accepted, very warmly received. It did very well. And then immediately my editor was like, okay, now write about the Vedas. And I resisted once again because I said, you know, just because I wrote one book about scripture doesn't mean I'm going to be typecast. I don't want to be that kind of person. I want to write about other kinds of wonderful books for children. I'm a children's writer, etc., etc. But after a few other books that I wrote, I felt the pull of the Vedas and the Upanishads, because when I was researching for the Gita, I found out that the Gita is really just a distillation of all the wisdoms of the Upanishads. So I was, you know, it really intrigued me to think about what might the Upanishads have said. What did Vedvyas leave out of the Upanishads to put this compact Gita together? So it called to me. I went back, did Vedas and Upanishads. And then again, I went off and did other kinds of books. But then COVID hit right after I finished the book on medicine, on the history of medicine. COVID came by just after I had finished, chest thumping about human achievement and how we have now conquered disease. Almost it had that kind of tone, my book. And instantly after that came COVID. And once again, we were all floundering. So it sort of, brought me back to earth a little bit. And then because everything shut down and I had no idea what to do, I decided it was time to learn Sanskrit. I had written all these books, but I had never learned Sanskrit in my life. So I started doing an online course in Sanskrit. I said it's high time. And it was a fantastic course. And my teacher, used to direct us to different Zoom talks that were happening on the subject, somewhat related to these subjects. And one of the talks she directed me to was a talk about the Yoga Sutras. Just so happened. And I had no idea about the Yoga Sutras before this. And once I listened to the talk, it was just a short talk, maybe 45 minutes to an hour. My mind was so blown by the end of it that I said, oh, this is the next book. Children have to know this. And then I began to research it, felt more and more impressed as I went along by the way it was written in such a concise, precise, logical manner. It was really like bullet point slides. That's what Patanjali was doing with it, giving you such amazing instruction, but in such concise manner that I said, this is amazing and I have to do this. That's how I came to write the Yoga Sutras for children.
Generally, from our reading, and we read a lot as doctors, we find that people who write concise books have their concepts very clear.
Yes.
So I'm sure, Maharishi Patanjali, as Maharishi P, as you refer to him in the book, for the kids, must be absolutely rock solid clear on his concepts. So, I'm sure 99% of orthopedic surgeons have no idea of the timeline. So if you could sort of give a timeline as to when it was written. And while you're giving us this timeline, can you tell us whether there is any religious connotation to it, or is there a God involved in it?
Okay, sure. So timeline-wise, again, like you said, Dr. Tushar, it's very difficult to date Indian texts because so many of them were orally transmitted for so long. So we can't really figure out exactly when it began. Our only way of dating ancient texts is by texts that came after. If they mention that these texts, then we know that they must have existed before. So it's a lot of cross referencing and slicing and dicing and figuring out, oh, it must have. So a lot of it is very speculative. Even after we started writing things down, we wrote on perishable material, which perhaps got lost and things like that. So once again, we depend on references. And most often, with most of the texts, it's the commentaries that have survived, not the original texts themselves. So difficult to date, but we can give it a 500-year window, 300 years before Christ, between 300 years before Christ and 200 years after Christ. That's the sort of broad window we can put it in. And you mentioned that it predates the Bhagavad Gita. That may not be so. I think it probably came after the Bhagavad Gita, because the Gita is at least 2,500 years old since it was composed and written.
I think probably the Gita, which is written by Ved Vyas, which gets sort of transmitted to us. Probably that.
Again, difficult to say, but around the same landscape of time, And what is it about? Is that the next question you were asking?
So there was a God form. So is it
God?
Does it have a religious connotation?
Yeah, very, very little. Very, very little religious connotation. It's a very secular text, actually. And it's deeply concerned with the psyche. I feel it's the first book on psychology, that delved so deep into the human psyche and came up with such crystal clear revelations about it. And all of it based on observation of one's own mind. There must have been texts before that Patanjali could have borrowed from or gleaned something from, but this final text that has survived for us is a concise, succinct, deep dive into the human psyche. And the kind of things it reveals is very much in consonance with modern findings on the psyche. It's very similar to that. God
the restlessness of the human brain is coming from infinite times, right?
Oh, absolutely. That is why these texts are timeless, because The world around us, the external world may change unrecognizably, but the internal landscape of the human mind and heart does not change. Human nature remains essentially the same. And it's the same fears, same anxieties, same concerns, same aspirations throughout time. And that's why, these texts are constantly relevant to whatever age you live in for this reason.
So Bhagavad Gita as a text, if I understand correctly, especially the ISKCON Bhagavad Gita, when you read, they say that you have to accept Lord Krishna as the supreme Godhead and then continue to read. So Patanjali Yoga Sutras do not say anything like that. So it's for all, across all religions, all languages, all castes. So so now we continue our discussion. So what is the purpose of writing the Yoga Sutras? What were they telling the civilization of the time and the civilizations which were going to follow?
Yeah. So I think the Indian ancient sages realized that, it's the same thing, that the world will never, your external circumstances are not at all what determine your outlook, your state of happiness or sadness, or your state of feeling helpless or empowered. All of that is not based on external circumstances at all, however much we may like to believe that that is so. If I have that thing, then I'll be empowered. If I have that person in my life, I will be happy. These are things we tell ourselves as we continuously chase something that is external to us, because we feel something missing inside of us. So to fill that void, that gaping hole inside us, which we feel like we're not complete, we are chasing things that are external to us. And as we all know from experience, from lived experience, all of it is only temporary. Any happiness that we may feel, any safety, security that we may feel on getting something material, whether it's a person or a thing, is transient. It lasts for some time and then it goes away. And that's why our texts are always saying, don't waste your effort on chasing impermanent things. You have only this much limited energy. So don't waste your time chasing things that are impermanent. Don't chase happiness. It's pointless. It's just a state. It comes and goes. Don't chase success. It comes and goes. Fame, money, all of it is transient. And the pleasure that it gives you is, again, very, very changing. It's constantly changing. The pleasure that you get from your first $1 million is gone as soon as you hear that neighbor is making $10 million. So then it immediately goes to that. So this deep discontent is only fueled by chasing impermanent things. And they always tell us, go after the more permanent things. And what is the permanent thing? Your state of, the other thing is, we cannot control the external world. And so it will keep throwing things at us that make us happy and sad and, feeling like a success or feeling like losers. But what we can control, what is entirely in our control, is our minds. And if we can learn to control the mind, we can change the universe. If we are able to change our minds, the universe itself changes around us. So that is the basic thrust and lesson of the Yoga Sutras. And the Yoga Sutras, interestingly, is not just a theory lesson. That is the Gita. The Gita is theory, the Upanishads are theory. They tell you what you should be chasing. The Yoga Sutras is a practical workbook that accompanies these theory texts. It tells you how to achieve that.
It's like a manual?
It's a manual. It's an instruction manual. And Patanjali's basic premise is this, that a calm mind is the root of all, of all happiness, contentment, and peace in life. If you can make your mind calm, if you can, because that is the most difficult thing to control. Even in the Gita, Arjuna says, Chanchalam hi manah Krishna, this is always going all over this place, the mind. If you can rein it in, then, the whole visual of the chariot and the horses and the person riding the chariot and the charioteer, it is a repeated motif in the ancient texts. The Upanishad, the Kathopanishad has it. The Gita has it. In the Gita, that whole visual of Arjuna standing in the middle of the battlefield with Krishna driving his chariot is a reminder of that. And what does that original thing say? The Upanishad, in the Kathopanishad, Yama is telling Nachiketa this. He's describing how the chariot is your body. The 5 horses that pull the chariot are your senses. the reins with which the horses are held are your lower mind, manas, like you pointed out, manas, buddhi, chitta. So that is the lower mind, which processes information, which is fed to it by the sense organs. The 5 horses feed in information. The reins are the lower mind, manas, which processes it. The charioteer who is holding the reins is buddhi, the higher mind, the intellect, discretion. He's the one who decides how hard or how loose to let the reins go. And in all of it, where are you? If the chariot is the body, the charioteer is also not you, the horses are not you, the reins are not you, where are you? You are the rider in the chariot. And you can instruct the higher mind on how tight or how loose to leave the reins. And we know that if it's held too hard, then the senses feel very constrained and you're not enjoying life. And that is also not right. Karma is a very legitimate goal of human life and experience. So you have to enjoy this beautiful world that you are provided with. Your senses are given for that. But you hold it too loose, and the 5 senses, the horses of the senses, pull the chariot in 5 different directions, and you will be led off the path. You will fall by the wayside. Your chariot will be smashed. So you damage both body and mind when you do that. So the whole concept is how hard or how tight to hold the reins, to give the horses enough freedom, but still, yeah.
So this is a done deal, right? A lot of listeners would have got sort of lost somewhere in between, who are not really into this sort of mythology. But tell me one thing: you have told us that we require to walk a tightrope, right? As I understand, it's a tightrope.
It's a
between
difficult balance,
pleasure and withdrawing from pleasure.
Yes.
Between being competitive and between being passive. So, does the Yoga Sutras, since you have researched and now written about it, tells us something? Let us say we don't read the book and we just listen to what you are saying. So today, can you
read
give
the book?
us...
Everyone buy the book.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean that. But
No.
right now, out of the talk, can you just tell somebody that, boss, this you do, and you will be able to, because see, every talk or every thing becomes popular if you can give them a tangible outcome. So what is the tangible thing which you can tell us? Do this and you will be successful in walking the tightrope.
Okay. So I'll just start with the first.
I'll again interrupt. So as I was reading your book, you have described as per your personalities which yoga you have to follow, right? The Karma Yoga, the Dhyan Yoga, the Janana Yoga, and the Bhakti Marg. And ultimately, your conclusion was that the Dhyan Marg is meant for everybody. So to be meditative and contemplative is for all.
Yes.
Irrespective of how your character is.
Yes.
So speaking from this, if you can then tell us how to walk that tightrope.
Yeah. So I'll just start with, because Maharishi Patanjali is so good at what he says and how he puts that, I'll start with the first 4 sutras. Just like any good textbook, like any good teacher, he puts all of it, the summary, the synopsis, into the first 4 sutras. So first he says, Atah Yoga Anushasana. Okay, Atah Yoga Anushasana means now for the study of yoga. Okay, for the discipline of yoga. So that's how he opens. We are going to use this. This text is about the study of yoga. So what will you ask next? He anticipates the next question. Now for the study of yoga. So next question will be, but what is yoga? Right? And there are so many definitions of yoga. I mean, in the Bhagavad Gita, it said there are 18 different yogas. Each chapter has a different yoga name. So Patanjali's definition is different. So you say, what is yoga? And his answer is, yoga's chitta vritti nirodha. Means yoga is the stilling, nirodha, of the chitta's vrittis. The chitta is the mind, all-encompassing mind system. To still vritti. Vritti is all the movements and churnings and changings of the mind. What is yoga? Yoga is the stilling of the churning, changing mind. The next question, as a rebellious teenager or as a rebellious person, you'll ask is why? Why should I do this? Why should I still my mind? If I wanted to still my mind, I'll just fall asleep or have somebody hit me on the head with a club. The mind is stilled. Why would I do it when I'm alive and enjoying life, why would I still my mind? What kind of an existence is that? So he gives an explanation. He says, Tada drashtu swarupe vasthanam. Then you see yourself as you truly are. He says, then you can see, if you still your mind, you see yourself as you truly are. And you will ask immediately, come on, Maharishi P, what else do I see myself as? Anyway, I see myself as I truly am. I know that my teeth are crooked or my hair is curly or I'm perhaps not fair-skinned enough. I see myself as I truly am. What do I see myself as otherwise? And he says, Vritti sarupyam itaratra. Otherwise, you see yourself as the churnings and changings and activity of your mind. So that has to be explained. See, Patanjali kept it very, very succinct, also because he worried that with the advent of writing, by the time he had composed this, people had begun to write things down. And he worried that with the advent of writing, people would stop listening. They would read something and they would feel they have understood it, which is good as information gathering, but not as wisdom gathering. The only time wisdom comes is when you engage in a discussion with somebody, you go away and contemplate by yourself. Swadhyaya, you spend some time contemplating by yourself. Tapah, these are the things he recommends. Tapah is great discipline to read, understand, then go away and contemplate about it and have discussions and listen to other people's point of view and then come. So he kept it very succinct so that nobody would understand it entirely. Nobody would feel they have understood the Yoga Sutras simply by reading them. So we have these 4 sutras opening, but at the end of it, you're like, what? I'm still not getting anything, Maharishi P. You'll have to explain it a little further. So he doesn't explain, but his commentators do. And the example they give is that imagine your mind to be like a still mountain lake, the kind you see on calendars or whatever, so still, its surface so unruffled. And when that kind of thing happens, when you see such a still lake, what do you see in it? You see everything around it reflected with 100% accuracy in that lake. Now, if you toss a pebble into this lake, what happens? Ripples begin, the reflection gets distorted, the edges of the reflections get wavy, they get distorted. Now imagine that a storm comes by, whips up the surface of the lake into waves, churns up the bottom of the lake and brings the mud up, and it becomes like this roiling kind of muddy lake. Then what happens? What do you see reflected in it? Absolutely nothing. Okay, but that's exactly what happens to our minds. If our minds are like roiling, muddy lakes, when it's in such a stormy state, we think we are that, and we find ourselves floundering in it. We find ourselves totally sucked in. We say, what is my life? Samsara is horrible. I can't bear this. But if you still your mind, he says, once you still your mind, try it and see. And he says, try it. If you still your mind, you see yourself reflected as you truly are. And then what do you see? That you're not some impotent, irrelevant, insignificant being caught in this whirlpool of samsara. You see yourself as separate from it. You see your emotions as waves that rise and fall, nothing to do with you. This is just what happens when you are embodied. You're living a life on earth in a body. The world is throwing stimulation. Your mind goes up and down, but it has nothing to do with you. To be able to see that, to be able to develop that detachment, that vairagya from what is going on around you, you have to still your mind, and then you see it. And he gives a very nice exercise. He not only says that this happens, he also says, you know what, there are only 5 kinds of thoughts that go through your head. So if you're able to sort of sort each thought, first of all, try vritti, watching as a new hobby. Sit down 5 minutes a day, 10 minutes a day after you finish your work, and just watch the emotions, the thoughts come and go. Now, meditation, people think like, you have to stop thoughts. Now, that's a very tall order. To stop your thoughts makes you almost non-human. It's almost impossible to stop your thoughts. So Patanjali says, don't stop your thoughts. Just watch them as they come and go. And you will see that if you sort of engage with that thought, but don't react to it, if you just watch a thought of something come in, but don't what happens? Because thoughts are like waves. What is the nature of a wave? A wave rises and then it falls. But if you don't wait for the wave to fall and you jump onto the wave as soon as it rises and hang on to it, it will suck you down with it. But if you wait for the wave to come and go, you are watching it, it has come, it has gone. So instead of saying, oh my God, that person makes me so mad, as soon as an anger wave rises in your mind, you're reacting to it with your body, with your mind, and then you have ruined your peace of mind. Your mind begins to churn. Instead of that, he says, just step back and possibly tell yourself, I am seeing anger rise, a wave of anger rising in my mind. Now I will do a stare and don't blink contest with it. Do it long enough, that wave subsides, it goes away, and your mind is clear again. So you haven't climbed onto a train that wasn't yours. You didn't want to, but the problem with us is we climb onto everything. So he says, try this. Just watch your thoughts, practice it. Because he says, abhyasa is the key to achieving results. Discipline and practice, practice, practice. Don't be deterred. Don't feel like I will never achieve mastery of this. Practice. I promise you, if you practice, you will get there. So once you have sort of not mastered, but you have got used to stepping back from your thoughts and watching them come and go, then start classifying your thoughts. He says there are only 5 kinds of thoughts. And you're like, Maharishi, come on, there must be more. How can there be only 5? I can feel 200 types of thoughts just now in my head. And he says, no, let me tell you what they are. So he says, 1 is pramana. Pramana is right knowledge. Some thoughts are right, they are important because they help you function in life. That's pramana. Second is viparyaya, wrong knowledge. Pramana, right knowledge. Viparyaya, wrong knowledge. The third is vikalpa, which means imagination, kalpana. Imagination usually rests in the future. You are getting anxious, you're getting concerned, you're getting happy about things that haven't even happened yet. And that's a waste of time, according to Maharishi. That just churns up your mind for no reason. It hasn't happened. Why are you worrying about it? And then the fourth kind is smriti, which is memory. Things that are already in the past, they have finished, they have happened. Nothing you can do can change what has happened. But how much time and mind space we invest in things that have happened, feeling regret, remorse, guilt, nostalgia, a longing for things that have happened before but not happening now. So that's a waste of time, he says. It just churns up your mind, leave that out. And the fifth kind of thought, he says, is nidra, when you're in deep sleep and there are no thoughts, an absence of thought. And it might seem ridiculous that there are only 4 kinds of thoughts. But in my book I have for children, I have given a kind of series of thoughts that might occur in their heads when it's early morning, when you're getting ready for school. And, I read it out to every children's group and I ask them to say, is it right knowledge or wrong knowledge or imagination or memory? And they manage to get it right every time. And at the end of it, they are stunned that there are only that many kinds of thoughts. So once you're able to put them in their little thought buckets, 4 thought buckets, nidra, leave it, these 4, then you can say these are unhelpful thoughts. Wrong knowledge, where does the biggest source of wrong knowledge that comes and troubles you is WhatsApp forwards, WhatsApp University. Okay, so leave that. Because right knowledge also, he gives litmus tests. Pratyaksha, Anumana, Agama. So how do you know something is right knowledge? Pratyaksha, you have experienced it directly, direct experience and perception. You have seen it, you have heard it, then you can trust that it's right knowledge. Second, Anumana, deduction. Because there is always a fire where you can see smoke, therefore, it's quite possible when you see smoke, you can say there must be a fire. So deduction, logic. And the third one is agama. Agama usually means that which has come, which means usually scripture or holy books, but now we can even take it to think of experts, news anchors that you trust, good teachers, people who care deeply about you and will not give you wrong information. So you can trust that kind of knowledge. If it's not coming from these sources, don't pay attention to it. Let it go. And suddenly you'll find that the number of thought waves that churn in your head have fallen to a quarter of what they were. Already you can begin to see things much more clearly. So this is one exercise you can do.
very impressive. So it is said that if you scientifically, the Western world says that if you meditate continuously for, they have given a figure like 21 minutes a day for 6 months. So they say your prefrontal cortex actually increases by 11%. So they are able to actually document it on a functional MRI that your cognitive brain, your new thoughts, the thoughts which you are in control of, actually increases physically. So I think what Patanjali Yoga Sutras were declaring before are now objectively documented by the Western world. They
Yeah.
have also been able to, do MRI, functional MRI of habitual meditators, like those who would be there in the Western world, vis-a-vis the Zen meditators. Means they have got a Zen Buddhist monk who's been like meditating for like 30, 40 years. And then they are notably able to give objective changes in the brain, right? So now, but you know what, this is again time bound. Means it's going to require practice, right?
Yeah.
Orthopedic surgeons, this is a meeting for orthopedic surgeons, are by core nature extremely competitive. So I don't know about other specialists, but I definitely feel we are very competitive. And so how to remain competitive and yet be meditative?
Yeah.
Does it take the edge of your competitiveness?
Yeah, I think Dr. Sanjay wants to ask a question or make a comment. I'm not sure.
No, I want to question the same question Tushar is asking. Actually, hearing you for last 15 minutes. As you said, chanchal man means we always are chanchal. Basic by core, human being is chanchal. Whatever the times have been through the evolution we have, means people who have written these texts and all that, those were different times probably. I'm not the perfect judge to say that, but like they could go away and stay from away from the humanity and then do whatever they wanted to do, and yet the people would feed them and this the. So we and mankind by nature has been chanchal, in the sense we have progressed so much. Now we are from stuti, smriti, and now we have AI. Probably we might be replaced in next 30 years. That we discuss in our own conferences also, that now that robots have come, what is our role in future? So we'll always remain like that as a human being, chanchal. So it is in our personal lives also. Like it is not about money. It is about something which
Purpose. And
like I did recently a conference. There was nothing I had to prove, but yet I was so passionately driven to get it succeed. I don't know. At the end of it, it may not have given me anything, but it has given me so many things that I could do it. I manage a conference. I could produce something. I could direct or directionalize something. It may not have been done purely by me. It is done by so many people, but it gave me personal happiness. So in view of this, what you are saying, like even I want to be a perfect man, in the sense that I want to be calm. My wife is my biggest detractor when she keeps questioning me that, in fact, why are you doing this conference? What is there in? So the anger is always there. And to a certain extent, you can control it. And to the urge to do something, you might want to control. But in the present times, how relevant is this? And how do you extrapolate this present generation and the human nature, the needs, what we have? Basically, I don't know. Even our chanchalta is also driven by God only. Na? It is not I am doing this. So I can blame him for this.
yeah. So
But
if Chanchalta is given,
how do
yeah.
these texts help in us, people like us now?
Yeah. No, they are extremely relevant. I think the master stroke of the Gita of Vedavyasa was to set the Gita in a battlefield, not in an aranya. It wasn't said by some rishi. This was a man of action who was being made to do action, who was being urged to do action when he wanted to run away from action. He didn't want to do that action. He gave very logical and very correct reasons for why he wanted to go away. He said, I don't want to kill. In what heaven is there a place for somebody who shoots down his own teacher, who raises arms against the teacher who taught him to pick up a bow in the first place? In what heaven is there a place for someone who kills his grandfather, who has been more than a father to him. This can't be right, Krishna. And for what am I doing this? For a piece of earth? I don't want it. I've lived in the forest for so many years. I can live there again, and I'm going away from here. And then Krishna gives him the lecture of his life and says why he should stand and fight. And that is why the Gita is for all of us living in this battlefield of the Kurukshetra of the world. And what does he say? He says, this is your dharma. You have to do it because you have been trained for this your whole life. This is what you have as a Kshatriya, this is what you have accepted that you will do. And so it's in that sense, it's a text that urges you to do your job, not walk away from it and go to a forest and sit there and be given alms. No, that is not allowed. In fact, in your stage of life and given your profession or whatever, you have to be the best that you can be. You have to give 100% effort. Then Arjuna says, then what makes me different, Krishna, from all the other people? They are just fighting for thinking that their work is everything they're fighting. If I do the same, what makes me different? And he says, I will tell you, you will do your work without being attached to the fruits of your labor. That's really the difference. When we live in this world, of course, we have to do our duty and, we have to give it 200%. We have to be the best that we can be at it. But we have to take that competitive element out of it. You're doing it because it is your dharma, not to be better than anybody else. That is the key. And how can you do your duty without being competitive? By letting go of the result. Now, in the current world, it's very much like you have to visualize, you have to vision it. If you think that you can be president of America, if you talk about it, if you focus on that, you can be. Perhaps, but you also are setting yourself up for disappointment when you don't become that, because truly you cannot control what happens outside of you. However, if you say, I'm doing this because this is my duty at this point, like I tell kids this all the time, students, what is your dharma? So they say you study very hard and all. I'm like, why? Why should you study hard? Say, because, to get a seat in a good college, to get a good job, to make our parents happy, to make our teachers proud. And I say, Krishna says all those are wrong reasons to study hard. You do not study because you want to come first in class. Why? First, you can't control it, so no point thinking about something that you cannot control. Secondly, if you say, I want to come first, immediately you're saying, I want everyone else in my class, no matter how hard they're studying, no matter how close they are to me, to come second, third, and fourth. And that is a toxic wish to put out into the world. It cannot be good for you. So you just do your studies because as a student, that is what you have to do. Give it your 200% effort. As it is, take joy in the process. Do the best that you can do. And as a result of that hard work, if you also come first, excellent. It's quite likely that you will. But thinking about the goal all the time distracts you from the effort because it fills you with fear, anxiety. Will I achieve it? Will I not achieve it? Will I be better than that person? Leave all that churning of the mind. Just focus on the job at hand. And at the end of it, if you achieve what you meant to, again, you're not looking for any particular achievement. You take what comes with a generous grace, and then you tell yourself, at least you don't have any regret at that. Not saying, I shouldn't have got distracted by this. I shouldn't have because fear paralyzes you. It dilutes the effort. However much you may think that fear and makes you stronger and pushes you towards something, it doesn't. It actually debilitates you. It's better to focus on the effort and see if you work with a clear mind, you will achieve success. But if you work by saying, I want to be better than that person, it dilutes the effort. It fills the fear is the thing, right? So unlike
if our president, Dr. Dhar, should organize the best Vairog, but not say that my Vairog should have been better than the previous Vairog, or the next guy should never.
Even if he has organized the previous Vairog himself.
He has actually, yeah.
So no need. Everything is new. Everything is fresh. Let us see what happens this time. We have all put in our best effort. And if it doesn't go well, it's not because of lack of effort. So there's nothing to blame ourselves for.
So we cannot practice saying that all patients should be coming to me. Means that is not the way we can practice.
No.
We are available. We give the best advice. If it has to happen, it will happen.
Yeah. No, only because it's not a fatalistic thing to say that. It's just a practical thing because you really can't control these things. You can control being the best doctor that you can be. You can control giving every patient that comes into your clinic the best of attention, the best of your effort. But you cannot control what happens after that or where they will go.
Yeah.
That we are seeing.
Like
Yeah.
it's like that famous saying, let the bird fly. If it comes back to you, it is always
It's yours. That's all. And it may seem like, this is for sissies, this kind of thing. It's only when you work hard. But if you try it, it's all about vairagya. And vairagya doesn't mean becoming cold and detached in that fashion. When you divorce yourself from the fruits of your labor, you're able to give happily, completely, wholly, generously, because there is no fear that is paralyzing you. When you don't have fear of competition, you can give happily. And that makes your effort so much richer, not only for you, but for everybody who benefits from it.
So since you write for kids, I want to ask you what to do about kids who don't feel competitive
Who don't
and who feel that, life is like a ball and like I'm on the roll and I don't want to be reading, studying, or I'm
who
not
have already
competitive.
achieved Vairagya.
Yeah,
So
well, that is
premature
not the kind of
vairagya.
vairagya we want, because again, Krishna says there is a kind of, there's right inaction and wrong inaction. Just saying that I'm not going to act is helpful to no one, because however much you may fool yourself, he says, we are acting all the time. Even choosing not to act is an act. It's a choice that you're making, right? So that is wrong inaction. You have to act. You have to act in the right way, means do your best, give your biggest, give your 100%, but don't get attached. So how do you help children do that? I think it's like become a generational problem now, because there is a lot of anxiety about the future for children. They feel
So
hope.
I asked a kid in my clinic, so
Hmm.
what do you want to be? So he says, I want to be an ethical hacker.
Huh.
So that's the kind of ambition. 90% of them tell me they want to be YouTubers. So, which is a fact. I'm sure everybody else can correct.
Yeah.
So,
I haven't read your. I'm very sorry, I haven't read your
No,
book.
no.
I will definitely read it now. There are 2, 3 challenges. Like one, most of these books are in Sanskrit. So I
Yeah.
don't know your book. So it is unfortunate that we don't know. I have passed 3 exams of Sanskrit. Beyond that, I didn't learn it. Second is this, you're talking of kids. I'm talking of the younger generation, these 20s, 18.
Hmm.
They are, I don't know, I find a very different generation. In fact, I'm a teacher in a medical college. I have these students who means slightest thing, they get emotionally disturbed. Slightest challenge, they get overworked. They feel they get their parents. So it's very difficult to handle them. I remember my MS days, post-graduation days, we used to get physically hit also by our seniors, yet we used to love that at the end of.
Yeah.
I am not giving credit to that for myself, but in fact, there are now protocols, guidelines, how you should deal with these students, and they are not kids. They are
Yeah.
past MBBS. They are doing their masters. In fact, my own son, I would say, they are in their own world. I don't know. So, in fact, they need to read these books. They need to read these books. So, how do you sort of get them into this? Rather, we reading it at this age, me at least, Tushar is much younger than me. To me, it may not really matter so much because whatever I have practiced till now, either it has been right or it has been wrong.
Yeah.
So now, even if I read it, it doesn't really practically give anything except mental peace to me.
Yeah.
So these kids, these young generation, or whatever, Gen Z boys, what we call them, what they call themselves, although I don't call them Gen Z. So what is is that perception, can that be changed, or is it we should go with the flow of the time?
like manual for life for them.
Yeah,
Like a life
yeah.
manual.
No, but again, very difficult to get them to these texts because they've already made up their minds that it's all fuddy-duddy stuff that we don't need. However, all of them are, I mean, I think there is a real feeling that the world of a dystopian future, they feel it's all getting over.
If I may interrupt, your book has been written in the language which they would understand, for
That's
sure.
true.
Yeah,
That's true. But
you
how
have
to
tried
direct them to
yeah,
the
you
book?
have written it as a dialogue, then
Yeah.
as a monologue. You keep
Yeah.
alternating, so it doesn't get boring, and there are some figures which they
Yeah.
would identify with.
Yeah. Yeah. So we try, I mean, by giving them books that make this knowledge accessible. But like they say, you can lead a horse, you can have the book in the house, but whether they pick it up or not, and when they do, whether it interests them or not. So I feel they're all struggling under the weight of this, dystopian future, like climate change, the world will end by 2030, this will happen. So they operating in great fear, and then that gives them the thing like, what is the point? What is the point of doing anything? Anyway, it's all going to end so soon. That is
On the contrary, madam, I feel when what sir is talking about the students, they are of the feeling that I am the only person alive, and my problems are the only problems which are
that
relevant.
is true.
So to
That is
hell with the
also
world and the dystopian future, but my future should be bright.
should be bright.
So,
But they've already given up on their futures. They're like, it's not going to go anywhere. That kind of thing. And I think, of course, as we all know, social media with its pressures, the peer pressures, the too much information all the time. We didn't have that much information, so we didn't worry about the world. They feel responsible for the whole world. They feel if Palestine is being slaughtered, Palestinians are being slaughtered by Israel, it's somehow their fault and they have to do something about it to show support, right? They feel very helpless all the time because of all the news that is coming at them all the time. And all of it is negative news because that's the way to increase TRPs and stuff like that. So people are...
As we are discussing this, no, madam, suddenly it has dawned upon me that what sir is saying, what you are saying, or what is happening in the world is totally beyond our control.
Yes, exactly.
I think that is what Patanjali was trying to say, that the only thing which is in your control is sit silently, observe your thoughts, classify them into these 5 things, and keep doing it consistently.
Yeah. Yeah. And
whatever
I would
has
add
to
to
happen
that,
will happen.
Will happen. And I would add to that, shower compassion and make a difference among people in your orbit. That's enough. When you make that real difference to somebody in your own orbit, that adrenaline rush and the whatever dopamine high that you get from having actually physically helped someone in your orbit, and you see the results of it in their lives, will actually turn your mind away from what's happening, like thousands of kilometers away, and make you focus on how can I improve.
That actually is the reason I'm asking you. It's like you have a 26-year-old boy telling that, sir, I am just suddenly feeling depressed. I want to go home, and he has so much work to do in the ward. What do you tell him? You want to be empathetic to him. You want to simply
it is a tough one.
But then how do you deal with him? There are protocols that he should not commit suicide. He should not. I never know whether he's right or he's wrong. Or so it means I don't know. In fact, we also need a lot of training for ourselves to deal with situations.
Yeah.
So as a teacher,
I think the hope is that it is a phase that the whole world is going through, and they are reaching out to therapists and people like that, right? Instead of books. And maybe that is one way of dealing with it. That's
30% of my students are under therapy.
And even the great resurgence of interest in spirituality among people of all ages, in India particularly, and this rise of spiritual leaders like or people like Sadhguru, and they have huge followings because it's needed. What they are saying is required to calm the mind. It is a very scary world. It's not any scarier than it was 2000 years ago, but we're made to feel because of all the information. And once you recognize that and start slowly cutting off your own access to information, get off Instagram, get off the Google News, that is a great practice, I think, to just detoxify, do a detox when it comes to social media and general information. You don't need all that information until you learn to deal with it calmly because I find that this generation, this younger generation, even the 20s and all, my children are also in that age group, is far more compassionate they feel very deeply. We were quite apathetic. Yeah, something is happening somewhere. We
They
can't do
feel
anything.
very deeply for themselves as well. That is what sir
They
is
do,
trying
they
to say.
do, they do. But they also feel very deeply for other people.
Hmm.
And I think if we can channel that deep feeling of compassion, if we can help them channel it into things in their environment that actually make a difference, I think we will be helping them, and they feel more, they feel less powerless. They feel just their presence can effect a positive change in something around them or someone around them, because this feeling of great helplessness is what weighs them down. A great guilt, a great helplessness that we're not doing enough. If you throw away the plastic sachet, milk sachet without washing it thoroughly, you feel guilt. Like people are always making you feel guilty for so many things. So at one
Actually,
point,
from where Dr. Dhar is coming, they are feeling lack of guilt.
really?
Means actually that's the problem with the
About
orthopedic
work, right?
section.
Yeah, they feel it's okay to walk away because they need self-care, like, you know.
And they have sort of a determined thing, that entitlement.
Yeah.
The sense of entitlement is a very big problem.
Yeah, I think
I
one
don't
of the
know,
things.
I don't
Yeah,
think they're doing it deliberately.
no, I don't think
They're
so. I
brought
think
up-
one of the ways, like Dr. Dhar said, is we have to train ourselves,
Hmm.
see them differently, change. Otherwise, we are always dismissing them.
Yes,
You know?
yes.
That is the problem.
I think it's important to try and understand where they're coming from, and
And social media probably has made it very, very distinct boundaries, in the sense now you are actually, all your life is on the social media. So
yeah,
suppose you don't get good likes, suppose, and
Yeah.
there is so much depressing news. In fact, I also sometimes watching TV, at the end of it feel chaos. Kitna chalu hai, itna gadbad sab, you feel. Yesterday only, in fact today only, I was talking to one of my juniors. He was saying कि असम में हमको जाना पड़ता है, business छोड़ना पड़ता है. I'm not talking of religious this, but because they feel overwhelmed by the local people or something like that.
yeah.
Although it may not be so bad, but then social media makes it worse, and then how to cope with it, that is what these texts would come in, but I don't know, they have to be more.
Yeah, I wish, my advice always to youngsters and all is to get off the online world and go into the offline.
But that is very difficult.
Yeah, but when
Starts from the very birth, I see. Yeah, in my hospital, I think Tushar must be seeing it daily. Kids, as soon as child starts making the mobile is in his hand, because they want to shut him up. I don't know that. So their brain has definitely developed, I think, as ours was. We were much.
I think it is reaching a kind of, I like to think that it's reaching a kind of saturation point.
Yeah.
But I must say something, that we ourselves were very different from the world of Patanjali. And we feel that Patanjali's Yoga Sutras are good for us. I'm sure it will hold true for the next generation as well.
Yeah, in fact, now we are seeing more of Patanjali everywhere.
That's what.
It was not even. I have heard that there are things like Patanjali
we didn't need that. Yeah. Now
Patanjali is supposed to from Kashmir, so I never heard of him till I came to Bombay.
Yeah.
So I think the $1 million statement here is that he wrote something which is very eternal.
Yeah.
And from the limited talk that we have had for 1 hour, is that you sit in silence and observe your thoughts.
Yeah.
I think that's the conclusion. And then
the other thing, I'll just say a small thing, just 2 minutes, is this whole Ashtanga, the 8-step ladder that he's given as a progressive thing to reach Samadhi. And Samadhi is like beyond us right now, it's very, very far away. So meditation, if anybody says, how do you calm your mind? The first thing children or any audience that I speak to will say is meditation. You calm your mind through meditation. But in Patanjali's 8-step ladder, meditation comes as step number 6. So there is 5 steps of prep to do before even you start meditating in the proper way, like dhyana. This kind of watching your thoughts is one kind of simple meditation, but to reach dhyana, you need to do 5 others. What are those 5 steps? That is the important thing. And the Yoga Sutras are the closest thing we have to a book of commandments also, which Hinduism doesn't have, actually. It doesn't tell you what to do. It tells you in the circumstances, you decide what is the best course of action. But Patanjali gives you commandments. Like in the first step is yamas, things you must practice towards others. Second step is niyamas, things you must practice towards yourself. And what are the yamas, for instance? Ahimsa, satya, asteya, brahmacharya, aparigraha means don't always tell the truth, do not practice violence, do not steal, and do not, practice restraint, those kinds of things. And you would say, how does that lead to a calm mind? Why is that the first step to a calm mind? And then the explanation is so beautiful. He says that, if you tell the truth, it's not because most other religious texts, what would they say? Tell the truth because it guarantees you a place in heaven, because God will be pleased with you and he'll give you this reward like Santa Claus. He will put you in heaven if you tell the truth, right? That is the kind of incentive that is dangled before human beings usually. But Patanjali says, listen, you want a calm mind, right? If you tell the truth, your mind is way calmer than if you lie. Because if you lie, as we know, you have to remember so much more. And you have to labor under the anxiety of somebody finding you out that you have lied. But if you tell the truth, instantly, the churnings of the minds falls by a certain percentage. So everything he suggests that you do is in the pursuit of a calm mind, not in pursuit of rewards in the afterlife, which makes it such a scientific, practical, relatable text for the young generation, for the modern generation, which scoffs at, spirituality and that kind of stuff and heaven and all. They will not listen to those kind of things. But if you say, listen, you want a calm mind, don't practice violence on people or on yourself. And I think when I say that to high school kids, particularly the younger kids, I don't talk about Yoga Sutras, but high school kids, college kids, when I say, can you just list out the kinds of violence you practice against yourself? Can you list out, and I say, don't steal, most of you must be saying, that is easy. I don't steal anything from anyone at all. That is not something I do. But if you ask yourself, have you stolen somebody's reputation? Have you stolen somebody's dignity? Have you stolen somebody's ideas and taken the credit to yourself? Then you see, we are all stealing. And what about, so that kind, when you do that, it, according to Patanjali, it churns your mind. And you don't do that, it leads to a calm mind. And that's a perfectly logical explanation that they all immediately get. So in that sense, it's very scientific. It's very logical. And it's the kind of thing that youth of today can get behind.
So it will also tell us why we are not able to achieve a calm mind. We can
Yeah.
take a step backward and understand that we are not doing the first.
Exactly.
So when somebody says, I'm not able to meditate, okay, boss, you look at the first few steps. Whether are you able to practice non-violence?
Yes. Again, violence in thought, deed, word,
So I think we've reached the hour that we had taken your commitment for, madam.
Sure.
So I'll try to sort of draw a conclusion. So because of the presence of esteemed Dr. Sanjay Dhar, we could actually tackle both parts today, the practical world of orthopedics and the academic world of orthopedics, right? And we dealt with two sets of problems, being ultra competitive or being ultra complacent, either being too dutiful or having no sense of duty. So the problem is that we are not really able to tread in the midline.
Middle path, yeah.
Yeah, middle path. So I think from the last statement, I'll go backwards, is that we should familiarize ourselves with the right action so that if we practice the right action, we'll automatically be able to focus and meditate better.
Yes.
And be able to reach a higher and a better version of ourselves.
Yes.
So I think we should all not aim to be merely successful, but we should aim to be the best version of ourselves.
Each day a little better than yesterday, and competing only with ourselves. Yeah.
And as divine a version of ourselves as we can be.
Yes.
In spite of all the odds that we are facing in our environment.
Yes.
And more the odds, the better, I guess. It makes our practices more powerful.
Yes.
Is Neeraj Bijlani there, or he's not probably? So I think, Dhar sir, you would want to make the final remarks.
No, it was definitely a very enlightening talk for me personally.
That's a big deal.
I'm sure I'll look forward to having more on madam, her books at least very soon. I will request Tushar to.
Maybe we can organize a program, a series of program of madam for the residents. So
Yeah.
that a 2-3 step
Yeah.
program, that would be something very nice where we can also participate and learn. And
Yeah, we definitely are
hopefully-
on the threshold of framing the program for next year. I'm sure we'll have something on that.
So what happens is that
Neeraj is there.
even if some people we are able to help, just a sec. Even if we are able to help some people, it would be great.
Definitely.
Am
Yeah.
I seen? I think I got lost. Sorry because of the call. Sorry about that. So, madam, thanks a lot. Dhar sir, thanks a lot for giving us this opportunity on the BOS Foundation Day to have such an enlightening conversation, which was apt to all practitioners as well as all residents. Neeraj is there, Dr. Dheeraj Sonavne, everybody is there. Great. Sandeep Biraris is there. He looks tired from the past Vyrock and all the organizing that he has been doing.
No,
So,
no, not at all,
thanks,
sir.
Thanks a lot, madam. And I'm sure most of us would want to read the book. It's very simply written. It's very easily available. I think we should all procure it. And to the best of our abilities, read it within the next 2 days. That's the
Okay.
right action.
Pressure.
Yeah, that's the right action for us
Is
today.
it
So
available
that's the
online?
right thing.
Is it available online?
Yeah,
It
it's
is.
there.
It is. Kindle
Hmm.
version is also there. Yeah.
Great, madam. Right. Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot,
Thank you,
everybody,
Dr.
for being
Tushar.
here.
Thank you, Dr. Neeraj. Thank you so much, Dr. Sanjay.
Thank you,
Thanks.
madam.
Thank you very much, madam. Thanks a lot.
Namaste. Bye.
Thank you, Tushar.
चलो
बस है ना नीरज
है इज लाइव हो गया स्टॉप
हाँ
अच्छा था सर